Why the government incompetence should never be excused, regardless of which party is in power. This is the question for today's video, and it isn't about playing the blame game, it's about how political loyalty fuels division, erodes trust and stifles the critical thinking that we need in today's complex world. And while this is a global issue, we'll use the United States as an example and a case study here. So let's dive in. To start, let's define what we mean by governmental incompetence. It's not just a politician misspeaking or a policy that doesn't quite pan out, because those are inevitable in any messy democracy. Incompetence is a pattern of failure to deliver on core responsibilities, mismanaging resources, ignoring evidence, or prioritizing optics over outcomes. When these failures happen, our instinct is to pick a side. If the party that we like is in charge, we might downplay the mess, say it's bad luck or the other side's fault. If it is the party that we don't like, we're quick to call it proof that they're unfit to govern. This reflex isn't just human nature, it's been weaponized by a polarized political landscape that thrives on loyalty over reason. The past 5 years have been a roller coaster for the US. It has seen a global pandemic, economic upheaval, heated elections, multiple controversies in both internal and external policies, and now Trump's return to the White House. And in that time, both sides, the left, Democrats, and the right, Republicans, have lobbed charges of incompetence at each other, often tying failures to ideology rather than execution. The left accuses the right of mismanaging crises and undermining democracy, while the right counters that the left's policies are bloated, ineffective and out of touch. These accusations aren't just rhetoric, they reflect deep divides over what government should do and how it should do it. There are endless examples of issues that get used as political ammunition here, so I'll just mention a few from each side. The left attacks Trump's poorly planned and chaotic tariffs policies and the escalating trade war. They accuse the new administration of incompetence when it comes to immigration policies, specifically mass visa cancellations targeting international students. Then there is Doge and Elon Musk controversies, the Signal chat group mess, the bizarre rhetoric around Greenland and Canada, and many others just in the first few months of Trump presidency. The right, of course, has its own list of grievances, accusing the left of bungling key issues in the years leading up to the Trump's 2024 victory and beyond. Accusations focus heavily on the Biden-Harris administration's record, with one of the most cited examples being the border crisis, resulting in record-high border crossings and cities like New York and Chicago being overwhelmed and spending hundreds of millions of dollars on migrant shelters. The right says that this wasn't just a policy choice, it was mismanagement, with no plan to handle the surge or support local governments. Another sore point for the right is the Afghanistan withdrawal in 2021, which they call a textbook case of incompetence. The chaotic pullout left 13 US service members dead in a Kabul airport bombing and stranded thousands of Afghan allies. Pentagon later admitted logistical failures, like delayed evacuations and poor coordination with allies. However, the conservatives argue that this wasn't just a one-off, but instead reflected a broader pattern of weak leadership that emboldened US adversaries. They point to Taliban taking over Afghanistan as proof of lasting damage. Now, these issues, border chaos, Afghanistan and others, are seen by the right as evidence of systemic failure under democratic leadership, justifying Trump's return to power. However, both sides often gloss over their own shortcomings. The left rarely mentions how Biden's $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan in 2021 contributed to inflation, which according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics peaked at 9.1% in 2022. They also don't really enjoy talking about Joe Biden's cognitive state in his last years as president. The right, in its turn, downplays the fallout from Trump's ongoing tariffs gambit and the staggering incompetence demonstrated by the officials involved in the Signal chat group scandal. It also defends mass deportations and glaring Doge mistakes. And that blatant refusal to admit mistakes and tendency to point fingers feeds the divide in the US society. Studies from the Pew Research Center show that political polarization in the US has skyrocketed over the past 3 decades. Negative feelings towards the opposing party have surged. In 1994, 21% of Republicans and 17% of Democrats said that they had very unfavorable views of the other side. By 2022, those numbers jumped to 62% and 54% respectively. More than 35% of people said that they would be upset if their sons or daughters would try to marry someone from the opposing party. So this isn't just disagreement, it's tribalism, where loyalty to the tribe overrides objective judgment. And then social media pours gasoline on this fire. Algorithms reward outrage, amplifying voices that frame every issue as a battle between good and evil. When a government screws up, say a botched infrastructure project or a poorly executed foreign policy move, the online echo chambers don't analyze, they attack or deflect. If you're on the left, you might see posts blaming systemic racism or corporate greed, even if the evidence points to just simple mismanagement. And if you're on the right, you might hear it's all because of the woke policies or over-regulation, when the real issue is a failure to plan. This knee-jerk partisanship doesn't solve problems, it buries them. And so both sides of the populace are keen to ignore the missteps of the administration if it's their own political party, but will feverishly attack the government if the opposing party is in power. It's hypocrisy and denial on national scale. So why does this matter? Well, because when we excuse incompetence based on political affiliation, we're not just letting politicians off the hook, we're undermining the very systems that keep the society running. Governments exist to serve. Again, to serve, not to score points. When we lower the bar for our side, we erode accountability across the board, and that erosion feeds a vicious cycle. Distrust in institution grows, people cling tighter to their tribes, and the space for a nuanced debate shrinks. As an example, consider the US healthcare system, which is a labyrinth of inefficiency that's been a punching bag for both sides for forever. The Affordable Care Act, passed in 2010, was a lightning rod. Democrats hailed it as a historic step towards universal coverage. Republicans called it a government overreach that would bankrupt the country. Now, fast forward to 2025, and what do we have? The system is still a mess. Administrative costs eat up 8% of healthcare spending in the US compared to 1 to 3% in peer countries like Canada or the UK. Preventable medical errors still kill tens of thousands annually. Estimates range from 44,000 to 98,000 deaths per year, according to the National Academy of Medicine. And yet, instead of dissecting these failures with a scalpel, we get partisan shouting matches. When the ACA rolled out, glitches like the healthcare.gov website crashing were real incompetence, which is poor planning and execution, not ideology. But the left circled the wagons, framing criticism as sabotage by the right, and the right, in the meantime, used every hiccup to paint the whole law as a disaster, ignoring that millions still gain coverage. Both sides had valid points, because the law expanded access but also added complexity and costs. Yet, instead of grappling with those trade-offs, we just got another trench warfare. And the result? A system that is still broken, with neither side incentivized to fix it, because admitting flaws might mean ceding political ground. And this pattern, defend your side and attack the other, doesn't just stall progress, it poisons public discourse. When we can't criticize our own team without being called traitors, we'll lose the ability to think critically. And critical thinking isn't just about spotting flaws, it's about being open to alternative viewpoints, even when they challenge our own. Polarization makes this worse by turning every issue into zero-sum game. If you're on the left, admitting government incompetence in, say, urban housing policy might feel like handing ammunition to conservatives who want less regulation. If you're on the right, calling out failures in military spending might seem like weakening your case against big government. But this tightrope act leaves everyone's stuck. The National Low Income Housing Coalition reports that more than 50% of wage earners in the US cannot afford a modest one-bedroom rental home while working one full-time job. Think about it. 50%. That's not a left or right problem, it's a failure of governance. Same with defense. The Pentagon's own audits show billions in unaccounted for spending, yet we rarely see bipartisan calls for a reform. Why? Because owning up to failure risks political capital. So is there an antidote to this? Well, yeah. It starts with citizens demanding better, not just from the other side, but also from their own. That means holding leaders accountable with clear metrics and not just blind loyalty. Did a policy deliver measurable results? If not, why? Those are the questions we should always ask our governments. This means rewarding politicians who admit mistakes and pivot, not those who double down and deflect. And it means rebuilding a culture of discourse where ideas can be challenged without personal attacks. Excusing governmental incompetence because of political affiliation doesn't just weaken democracy, it betrays the public good. When we let failure slide, we're saying it's okay for bridges to crumble, for schools to fail, for systems to break, as long as the right people are in charge. That's not governance, it's fandom. And fandom can't solve the complex problems that we face right now, like climate change, economic inequality, global instability. Those require leaders who deliver and citizens who demand excellence, not just applause lines. So why don't you start by questioning your own side as fiercely as you would question the other? Seek out primary sources of information like budget reports or policy outcomes, and not just the headlines. Engage with people who disagree with you, but not to win, to understand. And vote for competence over charisma, for results over rhetoric. It may not be sexy, but it's necessary. Because when we hold every leader to the same standard, we don't just get better government, we get better society. And thank you very much for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What's an example of incompetence that you've seen that was excused for political reasons? And if you found this content to be useful or thought-provoking, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more. Stay curious, stay critical, and I'll see you on the next one.